Guys, spring is just around the corner and is the perfect time to refresh your routine. Let me tell you a change I have made. I have ditched endless cups of coffee for something better, Mudwtr. If you're looking to cut out those coffee jitters or that midday slump, Mudwtr is perfect for you. It's not your average cup of joe. With a blend of cacao, chai, turmeric, and adaptogenic mushrooms, it will help you feel more focused without the crash. It's smooth, steady, and honestly, it just makes you feel better. And now Mudwtr is available at Target and Sprouts locations throughout the US. So it has never been easier to grab a cup of this pick-me-up. There's also caffeine-free blends available. Functional mushrooms seem to be all the hype right now, so join the club. Head to mudwtr.com and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get over 40% off your entire order, plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother when you use the code Chael. After your purchase, they're going to ask you how you found them. Show your support. Tell them I sent you. I have a big concern with Tom Aspinall knocking out his last 6 guys all inside of the first round. I know that that's being glorified and that's being celebrated, but it's very much the same role that Sergey Pavlich had. And I only bring that to you that you can't mimic a fight. You just can't. And we do our best in other sports you can. Volleyball is a great example. Why that just came to me. Tennis is a great example. Wrestling is a great example. Football's a little less so in terms of the scrimmage and in terms of every day and how they're going to run plays and actually drive each other into the ground. But MMA is very difficult to do. The harder you go, just for example, but the harder you're going to go, the more gear that you wear to protect yourself. You get headgear on. That only makes sense, right? Well, but you don't wear those on fight night. So now you've just changed it. I mean, if you're trying to mimic something, you're trying to really mimic something, you just changed it right there before you even got started. And now all of a sudden you want to throw a little bit harder, so you put the big gloves on. And I get it. That makes sense. That's the only way to do it. But now you just changed it. I mean, before we even started, we've already changed it. We've already changed 2 things. So how close can you actually mimic it? And I took a break. When I say I took a break, it means I was suspended. I took a break. And I came back. And I was no different than anybody else not named Dominic Cruz. That layoff mattered. But let's do the math on that real fast. All right? I was out for 2 years. Let's do the math on that. I had fought 30 minutes in 2 years. Okay. There's a break. But either way, in that 24-month period, I had a half hour of live competition. Tom hasn't had a half hour in 4 years. You got a few minutes over here, and you got a few minutes over here, and you're a lot better to do that. You're a lot better to couple that and then take the break on the back end. You're a lot better to sprinkle it, to have the training camps, make the trip, get on the airplane, do the warm-up. You're in a pretty good spot to do that, but it doesn't change my point that when a fight turns out to be harder than you're used to it being. And that is one thing about Jon Jones. His dog meter has been tested. He has had to bring in, right, when he's caught in an armbar by Vitor and it's early and dry. Vitor is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and at that point, Jon was not. He had a gold belt called the world title. He was not a black belt. Just for example, that was the moment that Jon hands over the belt. The moment that anybody else in history in that situation hands over the belt. Gets a rematch, comes out, avoids that position, gets it back. That's the way that story goes 100% of the time, but not with him. When it got tested, how bad do you want it? He passed the test. When he finds himself in the 5th round with Alexander Gustafsson, who he by his own admittance did not train for because he did not think that was a hard fight, he passed the test. As a matter of fact, I don't remember a 5th round that Jon Jones has ever lost. As a matter of fact, the night that Jon Jones should have relinquished the belt to Dominic Reyes, it did go to a 5th round of which was won by Jon Jones. the final rounds against Daniel Cormier. For example, Thiago comes to mind. When the going gets tough, he passes the test. And it's not to say for you that Tom wouldn't. But how prepared can you be? How prepared can you really be if in 4 years you've had less than 30 minutes? And it's a double-sided argument, isn't it? Yes, he's so good and he's so successful, and there's a reason he's fighting the top guys, and they still combined can't get 30 minutes. I understand that from a promotional standpoint, but I also watched Mike Tyson fight Evander Holyfield. Mike Tyson had knocked out everybody. He hadn't had a hard night's work. The biggest problem he's got with Evander is when the 8th round rolls around, Evander's still there. The bigger problem he has is when the 9th round rolls around, Evander's still there. That was the problem of that fight. Exhaustion. The number one fear of every combat athlete is not outcome. It is exhaustion. Not being able to complete the match. Not being able to follow the basic rule of protecting yourself at all times. It is the constant fight that you will have. That constant voice in your head telling you to look for the window and get out. Versus the voice that's telling you to stay in, be grindy, grit it out. It's just out of exhaustion, telling you whether you can make it should a worst case come, which is the final round. And when I look back at Ronda and Holly, a lot has been made of that fight. And a lot has been made as a massive upset. It was a massive deal at the time. Not to mention, I mean, you'd have to go back to Maurice Smith, Mark Coleman, to have the superior striker be able to get the jump on the decorated grappler. It's just not the way that these things went. And a lot has been made of that fight. But I contend for you, my own personal opinion, that the number one thing Ronda had against her, and no matter if you took that on short notice, you had more time, you took it in Australia, you took it in your backyard, no matter how you wanted to change some of the variables of that situation, Ronda had disposed of so many girls, not just in the first round, in the first minute, that when you find yourself deeper into a fight, when you find yourself in the 3rd round, by example, it's just not something that you're as prepared for as your opponent. And it's mere food for thought. But I do think that it's something. I think that Tom Aspinall, by the way, would agree with me. I think if I was speaking to Tom right now and I asked him, hey, isn't this a little bit of a problem? I think he'd look at it and go, yeah, it is. Now here's what we're doing, Chael. Here's what we're doing to mimic that. I'm staying in for 5, and I got these fresh parts, and they're rotating on me, and But I would like to hear that. I would like to hear what training you're doing. And I've had very hard training, and I've had fight night, and you have that anxiety, and there's nothing you want more than this match over. And that's a battle. The match over is a battle. Because one of the tricks psychologically you'll have to deal with is even if it goes against you, but it's over, but I know. But I have resolution, I have completion. It's one of the things, you gotta really slow it down, you gotta take your time, you gotta have a level of patience, but it's hard. It's a very hard thing to do, and it takes a lot of reps and it takes a lot of practice. And for me to bring out that in 4 years, Tom Aspinall has had less than 30 minutes of that practice isn't a knock on Tom, it's merely an accurate observation.